What's going on, family? My name is Christopher Battle, and welcome to another video on Lessons Learned. Today we're going to dive into the movie They Cloned Tyrone and the importance of considering the source of everything we consume. With the slogan of the channel being "There's more to what you consume," I couldn't have come across a more perfect movie to show why I made this channel in the first place. To be completely honest with you, I really didn't think this movie was going to be as good, and I actually suggest you guys give it a watch. I will warn you though, it is an R-rated movie and is for mature audiences. Before I get into what the movie's about, I gotta say spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the movie. Set in a murky ghetto called Glen, They Cloned Tyrone is a movie about a man named Fontaine and his life as a drug dealer. After stirring up some trouble with the local gang, Fontaine gets shot to death but wakes up the next morning like nothing happened. After being told what happened to him by client Slick Charles, who is a pimp, Fontaine embarks on a quest to find out what's really going down in the city of Glen with Slick Charles and prostitute Yo-Yo alongside him. After finding out he is being cloned, Fontaine and the gang dig deeper, exposing the truth that Glen is being controlled by everything they consume and people are getting cloned. After rousing the evil one behind the operation, they realize how much control they really had over the situation and are given the ultimatum: stay quiet or die. After learning the truth, they couldn't let it go and started a rebellion, uniting the ghetto and taking over the enemy's bunkers, exposing the truth to the world. What is the Willie Lynch letter? The Willie Lynch letter was a speech given by Willie Lynch by the James River in the colony of Virginia in 1712. With lynching being a term derived from his last name, Willie Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies that was invited to the colony of Virginia to teach his methods to the slave owners there, since they were the most effective in controlling slaves. His methods were said to be so effective they could control slaves over 300 years, and that was in 1712. As we get into it, we'll see how these methods are definitely still in use today, mostly attacking the subconscious so that the negative behavior is a self-generating activity. I strongly suggest that you read the whole letter so that you are fully aware. Link will be in the description. As I read this letter, I will replace the derogatory words with the word slave. Comparing slaves to horses, it says in the letter, "Both horse and slave is no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in her comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train the infant horse to eat out of your hand also. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized slave, use the same process but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest, most restless slave. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male slaves, the female and the slave infant. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse faced in opposite directions and set him afire, and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining slaves. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining slave male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful for future breeding. Take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so you spoil good economic. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. We have reversed the relationship. In her unnatural, uncivilized state, she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized slave male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reversed nature by burning and pulling a civilized slave apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the slave woman out front and the slave man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economic. Ain't that just sickening to hear? That's only a part of the letter. We'll get into the other part later. They Clone Tyrone does a good job at showing the effects of the Willie Lynch letter in Black communities through its many characters. Let's break them down. First and most importantly, we got Fontaine, the drug dealer dealing supplemental peace to those lacking, creating more ignorance as a result. As it is stated in the movie, Fontaine and those in his shoes are the most important and influential in neighborhoods much like Glen. Drugs and the selling of them is a very lucrative business behind the scenes and deals in crowd control, since most of the people nowadays are either smoking weed or partaking in some form of drug. Most drugs pushed on the street have neurological and psychological side effects that can impact the behavior of those that take it in a significant way. Therefore, at times, it's a no-brainer why certain cycles aren't broken, and that one was unintended. Drugs are the #1 cause of most arrests in the Black community and is what fills jails and places like them with those like Fontaine just trying to break free from poverty. I like how in the movie it shows that every day Fontaine grabs a gambling ticket. It not only shows that money is his real issue, but it shows what he is willing to do to obtain it. Gamble. That's what cost him his life when he got shot and what cost him his life every day he isn't breaking free from his programming. Most that sell drugs do it because they believe they have no other option. Only if they knew how to trust in Yahuwah and use their fearless drive and entrepreneurial skills for good to build businesses that are clean. Maybe with the outreach they have, they would not only be able to build something more sustainable, but they would be able to influence others to do the same, breaking a lot of people free from their subconscious setbacks. This is why they are the most important, and in the Willie Lynch letter, those like Fontaine would be the slave they break as an example. Having good qualities about them, just used in a bad way, those like Fontaine are constantly torn and burned in their environment, making it near impossible to make it out the same, hence him being the most cloned out of the bunch in the movie. Drug dealers are also more frequent in places like Glen. Next, we have Slick Charles, the pimp trapping many women in the defaming pyramid scheme that is sex work. It's no question why men like this fit in the category of the uncivilized slave that witnessed the torture of the civilized leader in the Willie Lynch letter. They are the ones more conforming to the programming by engaging in its process for the benefit of their own lives and further making women into tools used for further programming, making a cycle, creating more single mothers that raise indoctrinated children just like the Willie Lynch letter states. Maybe instead of selling these women's bodies and using them as tools, these men can marry them in righteousness, not one lacking, and use their expertise to build them up, in turn building themselves up as a unit. Businesses can be built. Our women can regain their elegance, and many children can be made embracing how things were meant to be. As Slick learns the truth, you can see the change within him as the movie progresses, eventually leading him to quitting his pimping ways and using his expertise for good in developing the plan which brought down the wicked organization behind the programming of Glen. I enjoyed this element of the story. As a prostitute in the movie, Yo-Yo represents something deeper than just prostitution itself, even down to the name. In communities like Glen, women like Yo-Yo need a strong male in their lives, but due to the effect of the Willie Lynch letter, most men are engaged in self-degrading activities like Fontaine and Slick Charles in the movie, leaving an open void in the lives of many of these women in these communities. Due to this void, many women like Yo-Yo, left without a proper covering, try and take matters into their own hands by turning to prostitution, drugs, and welfare, eating out of the open hands of the ones in control of their programming, as stated in the Willie Lynch letter. This is along the same lines of what happened to Eve in the book of Genesis, where she was found without Adam and beguiled by the serpent to do what was against her intended purpose. It's obvious why she was targeted, being that she was made of Adam's rib. She was a representation of one. A weak point for Satan to manipulate, being that without a rib set in place, you'd have an exposed heart, and of course, she got Adam to eat the fruit too. From the very beginning of the movie, Yo-Yo expressed that she does prostitution to raise money to go to school. When they hid in her room after visiting the lab, we see that she reads Nancy Drew, something that would come in handy throughout the movie. Many women like Yo-Yo have goals and ambitions, but are codependent on things that just keep the vicious cycle going, keeping them coming back to ruin like a yo-yo. But in the movie, when Yo-Yo learned the truth, like Slick, she put down her old ways and was one to never give up on Glen, even after the ultimatum. And lastly, we have gang members. Linked to Freemasonry, many gangs occupy communities like Glen. Of course, when there is inadequate housing and few jobs available, the unemployed turn to crime to survive, like Fontaine, Slick, and Yo-Yo. Weakened by the effects of the Willie Lynch letter, some of these individuals find safety in gangs and their ways, and unfortunately, they are usually young fatherless men. With gangs come rivalries. With rivalries come war. And with war comes death. And it's all a part of the wicked system. Of course, a good amount of these individuals fill jails and prisons and are tied down by enhancements and RICO cases, making even the innocent guilty by association. Drug dealers like Fontaine, pimps like Slick, prostitutes like Yo-Yo, and gang members alike are all connected through business, all lacking proper role models and father figures. If you didn't go to school or make it as a ball player, chances are you ended up in one of these pools, with money being the cause and the solution to your problems, placing you in a vicious cycle. Music is a big factor in the Black community, and I really enjoy how the movie displays its influence on us as a people. Listening to music increases blood flow to brain regions that generate and control emotions. The limbic system in particular, which is involved in the processing of emotions and controlling memory, lights up when our ears perceive music. Our taste in music is very important to how we feel and how we operate as a people. Nowadays, if it ain't about murder and gang violence, music is usually about some sort of sexual immorality or debilitated relationship, what makes it overall a negative experience that of course produces negative outcomes by feeding the subconscious more negative fuel to keep you in a negative loop. It's important to know that most of these companies that control the music industry are truly ran by rich white men that really don't care about the effects of the music they endorse. That's why it's important to consider the source. Whew, I got bars for days. In these mischievously crafted communities, if it isn't due to gangs and drugs, the leading cause of death is heart disease. The leading cause of heart disease is high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And of course, many know that fast food isn't good for them, but some just can't shake its convenience. Maybe if we knew exactly how genetically modified the ingredients were to make it convenient for the pockets of the ones up top, maybe we'd strongly consider our next trip to Popeyes or McDonald's. They Clone Tyrone does a great job at showcasing the effects of the nutritionless food in this scene here.
Chicken.
They also explain the strategic planting of these type of franchises in Black communities like Glenn in this scene here.
Crap. And you use us to keep it that way.
Well, if we were to pull you all off the street, there'd be 3 Starbucks here by Tuesday. And there goes our control setting.
Taking it back only so far, many say it's in our roots to cook and eat and have pride in what we call soul food. But when you look at it, most of what we eat is comprised of the scraps we were fed as slaves and goes against the law our patriarchs were given as a way of life for a reason.
Chitlins. For people who don't know that, what are chitlins?
Hog intestines. That's what they are. They call them wrinkled steaks.
Wrinkled steaks.
Of course, they're good. You have to have an acquired taste for it. You know, you doctor it over with hot sauce and stuff like that.
But a lot of people grow up eating that.
Yeah.
So now you got a sign up that says you're out of chitlins today.
Right.
So you mean to tell me the one day we've been looking forward to coming here and I walk in and there's a sign that says no chitlins?
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak.
Yeah.
Talking about some good soul food.
Describe soul food.
Of course, it goes back to slavery. Everything that was wasteful was thrown away, like chitlins.
Oxtail.
Oxtail, that's wasted.
They threw that away.
All that stuff was just wasteful stuff. It was a means of survival. You had to learn how to survive. And so everybody eat, and then they say, well, it's soul food. And that's where it goes back to.
It says in Deuteronomy 14:3, "Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing." In Leviticus 11, Elohim clearly states what is clean and unclean to eat. It says, "And Yahuwah spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever parteth the hoof, and is cloven-footed, and cheweth the cud, among the beasts, that shall ye eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the swine, though he divideth the hoof, and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh ye shall not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters. Whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing that is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. They shall be even an abomination unto you. Ye shall not eat their flesh, but ye shall have their carcasses in abomination. Whatsoever hath no fins nor scales in the waters, that shall be an abomination unto you. And these are they which ye have in abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination, the eagle, and the ossifrage, and the osprey, and the vulture, and the kite after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl, and the nighthawk, and the cuckoo, and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl, and the cormorant, and the great owl, and the swan, and the pelican, and the gier eagle, and the stork, the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat. All the fowls that creep, going upon all four, shall be an abomination unto you. Yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping thing that goeth upon all four, which have legs above their feet, to leap withal upon the earth. Even these of them ye may eat, the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. But all other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you. And for these ye shall be unclean. Whosoever touches the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even. And whosoever beareth aught of the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. It's here in the word clear as day what we should and should not eat, yet many are still ignorant to it or turn a blind eye. I mean, why wouldn't we take the advice from the one who created the animals in the first place? It just boggles my mind at times, but then I remember how bad the assimilation really was. More on that later. Pork and seafood like crab, shrimp, and lobster are all staple in the category of soul food and plague many fast food chains with its cross-contamination. With experience working at a Burger King, they always got the bacon near the onions and the tomatoes sticking the same fingers in it all while they make your food. If it ain't that, they frying it in the same fryer, cooking it on the same stove, whipping it up in the same pan. Why do you think that is? That's why we need to do our best to go back to our real roots in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean diet is perfect for the body and the brain. Rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and heart-healthy fats, the Mediterranean diet helps manage your weight, protect your heart, and prevent diabetes, all while focusing on the clean animals listed in the scripture like turkey, quail, lamb, and fish like salmon. It's almost crazy how opposite this diet is to our issue, and all we have to do is take time to consider the source. This one is mainly for the women in the black community. In the movie, it showed the effect that hair relaxers, perms, and hair dyes have on their brains after use for long periods of time. I remember when I was younger, there was news that a middle-aged black woman who frequently used these products was autopsied. And after her death, the autopsy showed that the hair products left a discoloration on her skull, absorbing even into the brain. This information fell off the entire planet and cannot be found anywhere. Trust me, I've been digging for it.
Coincidence? I think not.
I mean, it's obvious frying your hair really isn't good for you. It goes against the original nature of your hair and scalp. And what did the first sentence of the Willie Lynch letter say? Both horse and slave is no good to the economy in the wild or natural state.
The answer. Where did everybody go to get an answer?
Church?
The big man will always point the way every time.
Of course, Elohim leads us in the right direction when we trust in him. But is modern church needed to develop a true connection with him? Is it really a place where you can get the answers you need? Nowadays, if it isn't a place filled with idols in the form of a cross or pictures and statues of a man named Caesar Borgia, the church is a mixed-up place filled with loops of confusion created by sometimes money-hungry leaders that tiptoe around key laws and key information in their teachings as it benefits and suits them. And we know by 1 Corinthians 14:33, our Creator is not an author of confusion. Some of these key elements are when to truly keep the Shabbat day, the fact that Old Testament law isn't done away with, and most importantly, who the word was meant for in the first place, which is the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The lost sheep. Chinese can go back and see where they originate from. Caucasians can as well, even the Arabs and those alike in lineage. For this reason, they are well set in who they are as a people. As far as a group of people is concerned in the world, who has the most trouble finding out who they are down to the root? Black people spread across the four corners of the earth, including natives and Hispanics. Ever wonder why that is?
Assimilation is better than annihilation.
When I seen this scene, I instantly thought of 1 Peter 5:8 that says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." For those who don't know, assimilation is the process whereby individuals or groups of differing ethnic heritage are absorbed into the dominant culture of a society. That's crazy because the rest of the Willie Lynch letter is as follows. They say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time if I could touch some substantial original historical base. And they advise us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions, so that each illusion will twirl in its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. This creation of multiplicity of phenomena of illusions entails the principle of crossbreeding the slave and the horse as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor. The results of which is the severance of the points of original beginnings for each sphere illusion. Crossbreeding slaves means taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many slave women as possible, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another cycle of color appears as you desire. Crossbreeding completed, for further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new slave and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on a basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language, for the slaves would soon be in your house talking to you man to man, and that is the death of our economic system. So we can see here that by strategic manipulation and what they call crossbreeding, slave owners were able to completely strip us of our history and our language through assimilation. Today we can see the effects of this in the straightening of the hair and wearing of the wigs to fit the standard white appearance, or in the mixture of different types of unclean animals in our diet, and many other examples explained earlier, but the most important form of it is in regards of the word itself, because it is our way of life and our identity. The skin color of our patriarchs were changed, and pagan customs and practices like holidays were introduced. Elohim said this would happen in Deuteronomy 28, where he lists the blessings and curses received as a consequence of obeying and disobeying the voice of Yahuwah. But Israel grew to be a stubborn people and very stiff-necked, especially after the death of Solomon. This didn't please the Most High and brought the tail end of these consequences onto us as a result. Let's dive into these curses. Really listen in and tell me what group of people this lines up with in history if you don't know already. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah the Elohim, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Yahuwah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thy hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Yahuwah shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. Yahuwah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven which is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. Yahuwah shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee, until thou be destroyed. Yahuwah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Yahuwah will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. Yahuwah shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Yahuwah shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. And Yahuwah shall bring thee in thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods of wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all the nations whither Yahuwah shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out in the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and the fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not Yahuwah thy Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahuwah shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Yahuwah shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor shew favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he hath destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahuwah thy Elohim hath given thee. And thou shalt eat of the fruit of thy own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yahuwah thy Elohim hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not venture to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, Yahuwah thy Elohim, then Yahuwah will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and more sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them shall Yahuwah bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldst not obey the voice of Yahuwah the Elohim. And it shall come to pass, that as Yahuwah rejoiced over you to do you good, and to multiply you, so Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahuwah shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But Yahuwah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were even. And at the even thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Disobeying our Creator is the issue, the source of our problems as a people, and the powers that be know this. Their aim is to keep our identity and feed us garbage to pollute our vessels and our understanding, so that the ghettos are running like a well-oiled machine to keep us imprisoned in this curse. And the modern church is at the center of the confusion. In the movie, even the pastor was cloned, and the entrance to the main underground hub in Glen was through the church everyone went to for answers. In life, it's easy to point out these places if you just read and diligently study for yourself. Always double check the facts you get from others. It says in 1 John 4:1, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of Elohim, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. It also says in Romans 16:17-18, Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. For they that are such serve not Yahuwah Yeshua Mashiach, but their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple. Be not another rat in the race for the cheese at the center of the engineered trap, which is the hood. In conclusion, whether or not cloning is something that is real, spiritual warfare is definitely something that is, leaving some people different and not the same as they once were as a result. It says in Ephesians 6:12, For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. In the WILLIE Lynch letter, it says, Keep the body, take the mind, and that a slave in their natural state is not good for economics. So of course, attacking the subconscious of a people in multiple ways with hundreds of years of trauma will create millions of the same lost individual in time, stuck in the same loop, influencing the next generation to do the same thing. If that ain't an obvious form of spiritual cloning, I don't know what is. But don't fret, my people. We have a solution. It says here in Joshua 1:8-9, This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy ways prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For Yahuwah thy Elohim is with thee whithersoever thou goest. With Yahuwah the victory is already had. It's just a matter of time. In John 16:33, Yeshua says, In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Just repent, y'all. Set yourselves apart from this world, because the programming is real. And like the old man said, it's in the water, but it goes deeper than the water. It's in you to do what it takes to break free. Look at Moses. It wasn't until he fled to Midian and set himself apart from Egypt that he received his true purpose. Why do you think Elohim told Moses to bring Israel into the wilderness? To break free from the assimilation. Find your wilderness, set yourself apart, and unlearn this Willie Lynch syndrome and the ways of this world. Trust me, you'll find purpose in the Creator, in the way things were meant to be, and in your natural state. Stay sharp, y'all, and remember, consider the source. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Also, if you have any thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. Subscribe for more content, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified whenever future videos drop. Thanks for watching. Until next time.